It started.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. So far, we discussed different services provided by Amazon Web Service, AWS Management Console. What are the those are compute service, storage service, database service, networking and content delivery service. We also saw how to provide security for these services while they are integrated, or how to monitor the services present in the provided by Amazon Web Services. Now, we have discussed that there are three models in cloud: infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. Well, coming to infrastructure as a service, compute satisfies this infrastructure as a service by providing it with by providing us to create our own servers of our own requirement. Moving on to different services: storage, databases, networking and content delivery, security. All these satisfy the two other things like platform as a service or software as a service. While a cloud consumer asks us, we are the cloud providers, right? While he asks us for service, software as a service, what we do is we integrate all these services and ensure that there is security for all the services by using IAM or any service from security, identity, and compliance. We also provide him to monitor his services by using management and governance service. So far, we discussed all the basic services and all the basic things that are present in AWS Management Console. So today will be our last class on AWS, and today we'll be discussing about what to do when there is a disaster. Today we'll be discussing disaster recovery. So disaster recovery is the term used to prepare for and recover from a disaster. So disaster is something which is not in our hands. It can occur unexpectedly, and we might lose a huge amount of data due to this disaster. So a disaster can be cyber attack or equipment failure, natural disaster, or even it might be a terrorist attack. Whatever it is, when there is a disaster, we what we have is a significant amount of data loss, and we can lose our financial status of the company due to this. So what we have to do is, while there is a disaster, we must have a disaster recovery plan. If we don't have a disaster recovery plan, we will have a significant downtime and financial loss. Even small things such as air conditioner failure in the data center might cause us with a significant amount of data loss. So what we have to do is we have to have a disaster recovery plan. So what is a disaster recovery plan, and why it is used? Disaster recovery plan aim to minimize the impact of a disaster by training employees and documenting the disaster recovery process so it can be executed quickly, efficiently, and safely. While we have this disaster recovery plan, what we have is we can recover our data whenever there is a disaster. We can recover data as fast as possible and as efficient as it is. Moving on to disaster recovery, there are two things. One is traditional disaster recovery, and the other one is cloud disaster recovery. What we do in traditional disaster recovery is, this is our primary data center, and in traditional disaster recovery, we duplicate our data center and place it somewhere else. This is physical data center, and we have to replicate the data. We have to purchase all the things present in the primary data center. We have to install it again, and we have to maintain as we are maintaining our primary data center. Through this, what we are doing is will be over provisioned, and what we have it will have a huge burden on us to maintain a traditional disaster recovery by maintaining a duplicate data center. Generally, we don't use this duplicate data center unless there is a disaster. But though there is not a disaster, we have to pay for this duplicate data center. So this duplicate data center concept, or this traditional data center recovery is traditional disaster recovery is time consuming, uh, financially very high. So what we opt is generally cloud disaster recovery. AWS allows us to scale immediately and quickly change and optimize our resources during a disaster recovery event. We can place our data centers through cloud virtually wherever in the world we want, and we only pay to it when we are using it. So with Amazon Web Services, we can have disaster recovery all over the world and can pay for it when we are only using it. So in traditional disaster recovery, what we do is we pay for it even though when we are not using it. So in cloud, we only pay when there is a usage. And the other important point is, in traditional disaster, we have to place it in separate area and we have to maintain it. While as in cloud disaster recovery, the complete thing is taken care by AWS itself, and we can place our disaster recovery plan, or we can place our virtual data center all over the world wherever we want. So if we have our primary data center, primary virtual cloud data center in North America, say there is an tornado or something cyclone affected our data center, then we can have a immediate backup plan, immediate recovery from another data center throughout the world. So this is why many people opt cloud disaster recovery through AWS. So with AWS, we can have disaster recovery all over the world. And that's the difference between traditional disaster recovery and cloud disaster recovery. I hope everyone is clear. If you have any doubt, you can ask me now. Moving on to key differences between traditional versus cloud. As you can see here, whether it might be facilities like data centers, power and cooling, and so on. What traditional disaster recovery, the user is responsible for all these facilities, while as in AWS, it's AWS responsibility, and AWS takes care of everything. Coming to security, to ensure the physical protection of assets, it is similar, and suitable capacity to scale the environment, support for repairing, replacing, and refreshing the infrastructure. Internet service provider contracts to provide the bandwidth utilization for our environment under full load. Network infrastructure such as firewalls, routers, switches, and load balancers. Enough server capacity to run mission critical services. All this in a traditional disaster recovery, user is responsible, whereas in AWS is responsible for all these things. So that's the major difference between a traditional and a cloud disaster recovery system. So there are two important consideration with disaster recovery. One is RTO and the other one is RPO. RTO means recovery time objective, and RPO means recovery point objective. Coming to RTO is recovery time objective, and it is the time it takes after a disruption or a disaster to restore business processes to its acceptable service level. So assume that we have a disaster recovery at 12 in the night. Then our RTO is 8 hours. Recovery time objective is 8 hours. So what this does is, by morning 8 a.m. our data will be backed up and it will be ready for usage. So this is called recovery time objective. That means RTO is in hours, and within RTO all the data must be recovered in the server, in a virtual server. So another important thing is RPO, recovery point objective. So what RPO is, recovery point objective, measures the acceptable amount of data loss measured in time. So consider that our RPO is 1 hour, and we had a disaster at 12 a.m. Then what it does is, within 1 hour, it backups a huge amount of data. So this backup must be done in 1 hour. So that is about recovery point objective and recovery time objective. These are the two important things that are related to a disaster recovery. So that was all about RPO and RTO, recovery time objective and recovery point objective. I hope everyone is clear. So moving on to AWS, while we log in into AWS Management Console, we have different services. We discussed what are the different services related and when to use these different services. If you want to establish a server, then you will be using EC2, getting into compute and is using EC2, Elastic Cloud Compute. If you want a storage service, then you might opt a S3 or EFS or FSX, S3 Glacier, storage gateway, anything you want from a storage service. If you have more data and you want a database, then you will be choosing from RDS, relational database service, or DynamoDB, Elastic Cache, any of the services from database service. If you want to transfer your data, then you will be using this migration and transfer. And I told you why we use this networking and content delivery service. Virtual private cloud is something why we use when we require resource isolation. We also discussed what CloudTrend is, what Route 53 and API gateway, all these things. So to provide security for all these things, we have security, identity and compliance, and to monitor all these things, we have management and governance. But we haven't so far discussed what are the services that are provided when there is a disaster. So let us discuss that. AWS products for disaster recovery are inbuilt. The AWS products and services involved in disaster recovery process are in compute, EC2, Elastic Cloud Compute, AMI, Elastic Load Balancing. All these things are inbuilt and they ensure that there is a disaster recovery. We saw while we were creating a EC2 instance, we were asked to select a period of time or security groups, right? That ensures a disaster recovery, and whenever there is a disaster, we can have a cloud disaster recovery and restore our data as fast as possible. Moving on to storage, these services like simple storage service S3, Glacier, EBS, Elastic File Systems, import or export, storage gateway, all these things offer disaster recovery. In database services, whether it might be the traditional or relational database services or DynamoDB or Redshift, offers disaster recovery. In networking, we have Route 53, VPC, and Direct Connect for networking. I told you why we use Direct Connect. Direct Connect is used to have a private connection for our resources or for our services without an internet connection. We can use private subnet in this. Moving on, in deployment, we have CloudFormation, and this CloudFormation offers us with disaster recovery. So these are the products present in AWS that offer us disaster recovery. I hope everyone is clear. So that was all about disaster and products that what are the important things we consider in disaster recovery, and what are the products in AWS that provide us with disaster recovery. So far we discussed there are two types of disaster recovery. One is traditional and the other one is cloud. Traditional is something where we replicate our data center, and it is a time consuming and over provision process, and it takes a lot of time and money for this. While as cloud disaster recovery is offered by AWS, and we can have disaster recovery all over the world and can pay for it when we are using it. Moving on, these are the major differences in traditional and cloud, where all the things like facilities, security, suitable capacity, support, internet service provider, network infrastructure, server capacity, all these are taken care by AWS. In cloud, and if it is traditional, the user is responsible for all these things. Moving on, there are two important considerations in disaster recovery: RTO and RPO. RTO is recovery time objective, and RPO is recovery point objective. So these are the products that provide us with disaster recovery. In compute, we have EC2, AMI, ELB. Storage, we have S3, Glacier, PBS. In databases, RDS, networking, Route 3, and deployment cloud formation. So I hope everyone is clear. Let us move on. So in the coming to disaster recovery methodologies, there are four types of disaster recovery methodologies in cloud disaster recovery. One is backup and restore. The second one is pilot light. The third one is warm standby, and the fourth one is multi-site. So as you can see here, these are the slowest ones and these are the fastest ones. So let us discuss each one of this. The first one is backup and restore. Backup and restore is the most basic recovery technique, and what we do is here we duplicate our data in some virtual disks, and whenever there is a disaster recovery, we back up this data. Let me give you an example. While we are using WhatsApp, our data is backed up every day. We back up our data, all the data in the WhatsApp every day. So whenever we uninstall or and install our WhatsApp again, we will be asked to backup, and this does not this backup does not completely fulfill all the backup requirements. It is slow and we don't have much time for this backup. RTO is long in this and RPO is low in this, too high depending on frequency and backups. Moving on to key steps. Backup in the key steps to configure backup and restore are as follows. First, we have to select an appropriate tool or method to backup the data into AWS. That means we have to select in what we have to backup our data, whether it might be a disk, virtual disk, or tapes, or whatever we want. We have to select an appropriate tool or method for this backup of data. The second one is we have to ensure we have an appropriate retention policy for this data. And we also have to ensure appropriate security measures are in place for this data, and we have to regularly test the recovery of this data and restoration of our system, whether it is backupping regularly and it is getting stored somewhere or not. So these are the few important steps that we have to ensure in backup and restore. Out of all the four backup disaster recovery methods, this one is the slowest one and basic one. So that's about backup and restore, where we use a virtual tapes or virtual disk to store our data. And here in backup and restore, RTO is long and RPO is low. And these are the steps we have to do while backupping and restoring. First, we have to select an appropriate tool. Then we have to ensure we have an appropriate retention policy. Then we have to ensure appropriate security measures are in place for this data. And then we have to regularly test the recovery of this data and restoration of a system. Moving on to the second methodology, that is pilot light. So what this pilot light is, this run a minimal version of environments in the cloud. We have to configure the infrastructure to run standby copies of the core systems in AWS to quickly scale them up production capacity if disasters strike. Here RTO is medium and RPO is low to medium depending on frequency of data replication. Let me show you. The products and services that provides a pilot light are Amazon RDS, Relational Database Services, or EC2, Elastic Cloud Compute, where we build replicas of our primary instances on RDS or EC2 instances and replicate data to them via AWS Database Migration Services or Amazon S3 buckets. First, we create our instances, and this storage is replicated then itself, and we transfer them using database migration services or Amazon S3 buckets. Moving on to Amazon Machine Images, this is ready to deploy AMIs of our business infrastructure that can be quickly and easily brought online. We only select which can easily be manufactured. Then moving on to elastic load balancing, we use it. These are used to point our traffic to newly created AWS resources via an ELB or a DNS. So the key steps to configure the Pilot Lite are: we have to ensure we have all supporting custom software packages available in AWS. We have to create and maintain AMIs of key servers where fast recovery is required. We have to regularly run the services, test them, and apply any software updates and configuration changes. When using Amazon RDS, we have to turn on multi availability zones to improve resilience. We have to use Route 53 to point traffic to an Amazon EC2 service. So that was all about Pilot Lite key. Pilot Lite is a disaster recovery method that is comparatively faster than backup and restore method. Here we run the minimal version, and here the RTO is medium and RPO is low, depends on frequency of data replications. Whenever we choose a AMI, we have to choose it that can provide us the fast and easy access. In Elastic Load Balancer, we will be showing where to data, where the traffic must lead when there is an error. In Amazon RDS or EC2 instances, we immediately replicate the data, and we transfer them via database migration services or Amazon S3 buckets. Whereas coming to key steps, we have to ensure all our supporting custom softwares. We have to create and maintain AMAs of key servers. We have to regularly run these servers. We have, when using Amazon RDS, we must turn on availability zones, so that if one availability zone is not available, then we move on to another availability zone and we back up from that availability zone. And we have to use Route 53 to point traffic at an Amazon EC2 server. So that was all about Pilot Lite methodology of disaster recovery. The third one is warm standby. So warm standby extends the idea of Pilot Lite methodology by running a scaled down version of fully functional environment running in the cloud. This decreases recovery time as the critical systems are already operational. The warm standby site can either be a full specification or on lower sized instances and scaled as required. This ensures that we can scale as per our requirement. Whenever there is an increase in on a server, then we can also increase the replication. And here the RTO is low to medium and RPO is low. So this is the scenario of warm standby, whereas this is our server, where we have a reverse proxy caching server, application server, master database servers. This is our database center, and here is our replication of our data. Whenever we establish a AWS warm standby, there is a mirroring or replication taking place at every point of time, and it is connected to a database server. When there is a failure, this system does not work, and Amazon Route 53 is used for is directly connected to this, and using reverse proxy or caching servers, the data is then recovered. So this is how AWS warm standby works. The key steps to configure warm standbys are: we have to set up Amazon EC2 instances to replicate or mirror data. That means we have to create a new instances which are only for replicating the data. Then we have to run our application using a minimal footprint of AWS infrastructure and scale in disaster recovery situation. We have to patch, update, and change configuration files in line with our live environment. We have to use Route 53 to point traffic at an Amazon EC2 server. We have to use auto scaling to right size our resources to accommodate the increased load. So these are the key steps for warm standby process. So this was all about warm standby methodology of disaster recovery, which extends the idea of Pilot Lite methodology. This decreases recovery time as it is critical systems are already operational. Here RTO is low and RPO is also low. And this warm standby is comparatively efficient than Pilot Lite and backup and recovery. The last one and the fastest one of all the recovery methodologies is multi-site. So using this multi-site, infrastructure runs in both AWS and existing on-premise sites in an active configuration. Users are use both sites and can be directed using Route 53 waiting routes. Here RTO is short, RPO is very low. So what we do in multi-site is, here the mirror replication is done at the point, and we have a slave database server where it is placed in both the sites. Like we have a database server called slave database server and master database server. Here master database server is used in on-premise site, and slave database server is used on a virtual data center which is used for backup. So what this does, a user, when there is no failure, can use both the data servers whenever he wants, and there is mirror replicating, and there is same amount of data present even it is in a master database server or in slave database server. So if there is a failure, then this using Amazon Route 53, we directly traffic it to slave database server, and through this we can have a backup and recovery. So this is about AWS multi-site. So the key steps to configure multi-site availability are as follows. First, we have to configure AWS environment to duplicate our production environment. Then we have to configure domain name system waiting to distribute requests to both sites and redirect traffic away from sites in disaster recovery situation. We have to use failover application logic to use the local AWS database servers for all queries, and we have to use auto scaling to automatically right size the AWS fleet. So that was all about multi-site key steps. And yes, Ritvik.
నేను తరుణ్ని.
Yeah, Tarun.
ప్రవీణ్ సార్ కాల్ చేయమన్నారు నేను అర్జెంట్గా అప్పుడు.
ఇప్పుడా?
ఇప్పుడే జస్ట్ నౌ.
I think he is on the call.
అంటే ఆన్ చేసి వదిలేసినట్టున్నారు. ఒకసారి కాల్ చేయమన్నారు అర్జెంట్గా అప్పుడు.
ఏంటి అయిపోయిన తర్వాత చేస్తా, ఇప్పుడే చేయాలా?
ఇప్పుడే చేయాలంట. నేను అర్జెంట్గా నీతో మాట్లాడాలంట. ఓకే, దట్స్ ఇట్.
So let me finish it first, then we'll...
What? Hello.
Hello, Ritvik.
Yes, sir. Message the finish the training and call.
Yeah. Okay. So those were the 4 disaster recovery methods in present in AWS. One is backup and restore. The second one is pilot light, and third one is warm standby, and the last one is multi-site. The slowest one here is the backup and restore, where we use virtual disk, and the fastest one is multi-site, where we use slave database server and master database server. So that was how we disaster. Moving on to benefits of using AWS for disaster recovery. We can use different resources like there are many resources which provide us, which ensure that we will provide you disaster recovery. But let us discuss why to use AWS in disaster recovery. So implementing disaster recovery becomes easier if we use AWS for both production and failover sites. So assume that we use production for this AWS for producing our instances, and something other for a failover. This is not possible, right? So what we have to do is we have to use AWS for if we use the AWS for both production and failover, it is easier for implementing disaster recovery. We don't need to negotiate contracts with another provider in another region. We have to use the same underlying AWS technologies across regions, and we use the same tools or APIs for AWS to AWS DR. So yeah, That was all about Amazon Web Services disaster recovery. So these are the things. Yes, guys, we have already discussed the services, basic services like compute, storage, database services, migration, network and content delivery, and security management. Today we discussed disaster recovery. So that's an end to our AWS journey. I hope everyone understood. If you have, practice it. If you have any doubt, you can text me. So yeah, that's all for AWS. Thank you.